the worst thing you did in your teens? Story 1. New Year's Eve 2013. I was 17 at the time and had been talking to this girl for months. She had the type of parents that would more than gladly let me stay the night. But after this night, I never wanted to again. Still did though, doesn't matter. Had some wild connections. So the day starts and I have my mom drive me to her meeting place. One was convinced I was going to a small party with friends. Little did she know the party was in my pants and not smile at all, and that the girl walked back to her place and gave her chocolates about 10 minutes later. I was about to finish my first. Now, being the classy lady, she was on the first date. She pointed to my junk so I would finish on the bedsheets. And I did, and then I learned we were actually in her sister's bedroom, a friend of mine from middle school. The wait, there's more, so she and I drink and give each other hands all day. Once the clock hits midnight, I make a fool out of myself. The phone said midnight, so I yelled Happy New Year and took a shot at the clock. People we were watching said 11:58, and everyone stared at me. So after that, the magic happens. We get left alone and she takes what innocence I had left, and then she did it again. After round 2, we went to sleep. We woke up around 8 a.m., went to the gas station, got drinks and a single rubber, which was all I could afford. When they took our place and did it again, then slept in now for the grand finale. We woke up hungover, tired and smelly, but I still had morning wood. This kind of lady obliged. Lights off, by the way, this is important. Once again, she just aimed me onto the bedsheet and pulled up my shorts. And she gets dressed. We go downstairs to find her dad and uncle watching TV. I had to go around it and walk between them the whole time. They both gave me a look that said they wanted to end me. I went into the hall. My girl followed me the whole time. It's our mom and brother who do the same as her dad and uncle just gave me a terrifying look. A large into the dining room with her sister and sister's friend who saw me and laughed. My girl looked and I pointed down and laughed. That is when I realized I walked by this girl's family with a ping-pong ball-sized glob of white stuff on my shirt. Story to last semester of high school. My friends and I were goofing around, ready to graduate, and after uni add a care in the world. Excuse myself to use the restroom, and a best mate dared me to go into a stall and try and pee over into the next Sal's toilet, up on my junk up war, and into the adjacent hall. Since it was only a few days till we left the school for good, I decided screw it. Why not? Unfortunately, when I went into my stall, I forgot to check and see if anyone was in the stall beside me, and of course, my friends didn't remind me, so I pointed upwards about 65 to 70 degrees and let it rip. Next thing I know, I hear a kid screaming at the Sudan Niagara Falls, a piss coming down on him, and he bolts out of the store, pass around ankles, making a mess all over. Thankfully, I never saw his face, nor did he see mine. And another reason not to use the school toilets. Story 3. My ex-girlfriend was a grade level above me, and she was a cheerleader on the school cheer team. I was a wrestler, and I knew when my coach would be out of the wrestling room some random Tuesday or something. We were just not texting in class, and the only thing I could think of was doing it with her on game day, the day she would wear her uniform to school. We decided to both use the hall pass during third period and going to the vacant wrestling room. The only light on was the emergency light, the chain directly on the center of the mat. We know if he would actually do it, but have a weakness for cheerleaders, especially in uniform. We did the deed for a whole 3 minutes until I finished out of either excitement due to the fact that I practice in this room and we're at school like, what the hell? Or that I was scared of getting caught. So I had to speed things up. We walked out of the room together, stupidly. As soon as I grabbed the door, I heard keys jiggling. Yeah. My coach caught me with my girlfriend. It didn't have proof that we did anything, but the fact that our school logo is now on the back of her uniform gave that away. He didn't take this lately, and I had my own personal hell week until the following Tuesday story, for it happened when I was 18 years old. My smoking hot stab aunt is only a few years older than I am. She was like 22 or 23 when I was 18. She was a party animal, and I was one too. We would often go drinking with our friends and my friends together at the club every weekend, sometimes twice a week, and get hammered every time. You know, she was the typical wild girl. She got intoxicated a few teams in the club, and we often make out with each other. I know it's weird is to stay at her place when we went clubbing because I don't want to bother my parents at 5 a.m. Plus, they didn't know I went clubbing. All I said was that I was sleeping over at her house to play games with her brother. So one day we got back pretty early around 3 a.m., and both of us were a little tipsy but were fine. I entered her bathroom in her room, accidentally leaving the door locked, and proceeded to choke the chicken. She suddenly walked in and I was shocked, and out of the blue she grabbed my hand, pulled me and kissed me. After a good makeout session we shook the sheets that night. I'm still trying to work out a step. Isn't just an aunt that married into the family where she's still with his uncle. So many questions. Story 5. Well, it all started with a big red pickup truck. Every time I saw a nice couch in the road, I would put it on the back for me and my friends to have a nice mobile hangout spot. Well, one day I picked up a couch that was a little big, being the stupid 17-year-old I was. I said screw it and took it away. It was a black leather 3-seater flash to nighttime, and my friends and I are doing our usual teenage shenanigans. We're driving around the worst road in my town, very bendy, and one side has a rock wall and the other has a giant reservoir. All of a sudden I hear my friend in the back laughing. As it turns out, he pushed the couch out of the back truck onto a bend on a road with no lights. We were young and stupid, so we didn't go back for it. We were going to explore the forest at night as payback for my friend. That porch, the couch. She started screaming and running back to the car and leaving him in the woods. I pulled into a park to make a U-turn, and we get pulled over because it's too late to be in the park. As the cop is talking to us and the cop lies in, walks up to the car and says, "Holy crap, did you see that couch?" Almost took me out. He asked if we know anything about it. Me and my friend can barely contain our laughter. The cops leave us, and as they were driving in front of us, they turned the lights on to question my friend coming out of the woods with them. Pick him up, still laughing as the cops move the couch out of the road. In hindsight, it was stupid and dangerous. I can't imagine having your cause of death listed as cross by casting couch or something. That would be so humiliating. I also can't imagine finishing this video, not leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, so go do it. Story 6. The audacity of my younger self is making me uncomfortable. When I was 14 or 16, my first girlfriend and I would do it in the back seat of her mom's van while she was driving. She would sit on my lap and just pull down her pants. Other times when we had a blanket, I'd play with her while she was laying on me in the back. One time we were caught in a room and she strategically got up after her mom stormed up, giving me time to get dressed as they could only see us under the blankets. Gosh, we were ridiculous. Parks. Empty houses at the foot of my parents' bed when they were sleeping, because that's where we had to stay when she spent the night. It gave me a lot of experience, but I still feel stupid for it all. Eventual children have no chance of getting away with anything with the stuff I've done. Story 7. Once my ex-boyfriend's 17th birthday, his parents left the house for a bit and specified they would be back in an hour. They never left us alone. They specifically left so that we could get it on. As my ex said, his birthday present was exactly that. We did all over the house, but it wasn't when he lost his V-card, since we had been doing it for a while before that. Broad daylight in his car pulled on the side of the road. Fields. So many fields in the way home. The golf course at night after prom in the back of my mom's truck for New Year's. While everyone was popping fireworks. Every time my mom would leave for a second in a closet while playing hide-and-seek with his nephews on his mom's massage table in her office. We were like rabbits. But seriously, he had some great parents to do that. Always had protection accessible in the house. No shaming, very educational, very open, great parents story. I was 16, living with my mother and sister. My father had only recently been kicked out of the house as the divorce papers were being created to keep my mind off of it in the middle of the night. I took my mother's keys and drove across town to pick up my girlfriend at the time. He grabbed some food at McDonald's and re-entered the house by my window. It was a school night. The plan was to just stay up all night doing exactly what you were saying. And we did just that a total of 6 times. So naturally I now tired and used pieces of rubber that it couldn't fathom disposing of anywhere near my house. So I did what I thought was clever and put all of them plus the wrappers into the McDonald's bag. I then dropped said bag out my window to be disposed of at a later time. Important details about my window face, the driveway and the air conditioning unit was almost centered about 2 to 3 feet away from the window, giving enough room to out behind it. The whole house had landscaping and bushes taller than the standard AC unit, which was used to hide said unit. So there was no possible way a human could ever find the bag or see it from the road at any angle. The mom lives with my sister to take her to school at 7 a.m. I leave at 7:30 with my girlfriend and meet a neighbor who drives us to school, where I would throw away my anonymous bag of stress relief. After school, my mom picks me up, which is unusual because I take the bus home every day. She takes me to McDonald's, the drive-thru out of the blue. She says, "Son, I don't know how else to ask, so I'll just ask, are you having?" They come from a very religious background, but my mother is and always will be understanding. I had no issues saying yes. What I had completely forgotten about was the McDonald's bag. I didn't take it to school that day to dispose of it. Before I could even answer my mother, my phone started to ring and my mom started to place the order. Lo and behold, it's my girlfriend's mother calling me, yelling into the phone that I had her daughter take Plan B. Now, when it comes to this stuff, I'm as safe as can be, always using protection. The girlfriend and I decided that she should take it after one hard session where my refractory period was so small that I was able to keep going after going once already without removing the rubber. Thought I was confident would be okay. I wanted insurance. Oddly enough, the mom was a nurse, but was angry because Plan B could cause a terminated pregnancy. What if she was allergic? So I politely told the mother that her daughter and I had done a research and made a very informed decision. I actually spent about 5 minutes explaining my vast knowledge of the pill because I honestly did care. She had no words to say and respected me from that day forward. Since my mother was sitting in the car next to me, she heard the whole thing. After the call, my answer to your question was obvious. Her reaction was one I will never forget. She did not shame me. She praised me for being so knowledgeable and using protection. I love you, Mom. So anyway, she started to bring up, she asked if I was having sex. She said something along the lines of, "Now, son, you know I'll always love you." This morning, after I got home from taking your sister to school, there were youth scattered around the driveway. The divorce had been pretty messy, and she went on to say, "So I called your father and asked him if he had done it. He said he didn't and came over to see it for himself. Then he picked them up and threw them away. I've never been so wide-eyed in my life and mouth opened and nothing came out. I don't want her to know I had someone over." So told the truth with some important details left out. The story essentially being I had no way to get rid of them where we had done it, so I took them to dispose of later. She had no reason to not believe me. We both laughed really hard. Then I ate my McDonald's. To this day, we don't know how it happened. My guess is that raccoons in the area smelled the lingering odor from the bag, and upon finding no food, just got really angry and tossed them everywhere. Bonus. I'm 21 now and I've since moved out. My mother called last week to inform me she had to have AC repairs done and they take the case off. There were 2 more used ones in the bottom of the AC platform. She thanked me for embarrassing the crap out of her yet again. She said the 2 repairman tried to act like it wasn't there. There was no way you couldn't see them, only then did. It strikes me that she never mentioned how many had been picked up the first time. So yeah, that was a fun time for me. Story 9. The first college football game I went to was a Mile High Stadium in Denver. We were doing it in one of the stadium's men's bathrooms, was packed, and someone must have tipped off security. The security guy forces open the stall, and to the cheers of all the guys in the bathroom escorts the 2 of us out of the stadium without letting us in or zipper pants. Since they have our arms in a lock, we cannot really pull our pants up as we walked. So the security guy's constantly rubbing my belt loop and yanking up so hard, giving me a violent nut-crushing wedgie every minute or so. I guess those Thai girl shorts stay on because she said you did not get any wedgies. We get out of the stadium, thankfully, without any charges in a drug-stupid state. Did it in the tailgate parking lot between cars. Luckily, it was only the occasional tailgate or cheering instead of a cop arresting. I guess they joined the Mile High Club a different way. Story 10. A couple of years ago, I was in a really bad relationship, and I didn't handle it as well as I should have. So my ex, we hadn't officially broken up yet, was out at work with my dad, and I called my best friend who I was madly in love with and had him drive over so we could hang out. It started with innocent intentions because I genuinely was a mess, but it ended up escalating quite quickly. It was a late summer afternoon, and we're sitting in his car, which is nicely tinted windows, at a park right behind my house, lots of kids playing around with families, etc. He started playing with me and got me close. So I started asking and begging for us to do it, and he pulled me on him, and we started doing it in the back seat, sometimes pretty quickly, and it was mind-blowingly good. He didn't that time, but we traded off. Who finished on subsequent meetings usually happened at the park or in between some houses in a different neighborhood, always in secret. We're engaged now. Story 11. My girlfriend at the time was 14, and I was 16 but was turning 17 in a couple of months. She called me that her parents were going to go out somewhere and that I should get to her house quickly. So I was super nervous because she told me there would be back in 30 to 45 minutes. So I took a big gulp of liquor from our cabin and raced over. We got it on as soon as we got there. The only problem was that her bedroom was being remodeled. Idiot me suggested we go to her mom's room. Her mom and dad walked in and us while she was on the bed. And me? Well, they caught us in the act first by our stepdad, who opened the bedroom door and was horrified. Then her mother. It was the most embarrassing experience. Then her mother threw an iron at me, and I was thrown out of the house. We stayed together for another 4 years and eventually split. So our relationship lasted 6 years. This happened maybe a year and a half after we started dating. After this time, I couldn't see her for like 6 months, so we only saw each other at school. There were several times her parents almost caught us. I know they knew we were always up to no good, as far far as teenage desires go. The worst occasion was one time our parents were in the kitchen going over bills and stuff, and me and her were in the living room. This was maybe a year after the first incident. They had already forgiven me since we were inseparable at the time, so she was wearing a mini skirt and she was teasing me, kind of testing how much we could get away with. So I told her to quickly let me smell it, but that's how it went down. We didn't notice that a mirror on the console table across the wall could reflect what we were doing and be seen in the kitchen. Her stepdad immediately screamed her mom's name. Then I realized I had been caught again the second time, this time while flicking the bean. I know it is completely stupid on my part. I was completely embarrassed. It's like, that is the most embarrassed I've ever been. That's when her mother told me that she'd forgiven me once, but there was a level of decency that I had crossed. She called the cops, then called my 3 sisters, and told them what you caught us doing. Anyway, I'm older and have learned from my mistakes. Story 12. Initially, this thread made me think my teens weren't that exciting, but then it began to sink in. How messed up many things were. There wasn't a lot of action, but tons of illegal substances and rock and roll. During the end of junior year that whole summer at the beginning of senior year, my friends and I were doing a fair amount of illegal substances. We started smoking grass regularly in 8th grade and added shrooms and stuff sometime in sophomore year. During the summer, we went to a rave at a warehouse in Cincinnati, rolling hard. The music is pumping and lights are flashing off in different colors and effects to the rhythm. I started dancing with this chick who leads me to a dark room. Right as we step inside this room, the strobes flash and light up the whole room. It's a sea of people in various states of undress, intertwined in all positions imaginable. It is a giant group thing, easily 50+ people spread across this room. I decided I'm not interested in pull her off to one side of the room to have her for myself. As soon as we finish off, she leaps into a pile, and I slowly back out of the room and disgusted of the thought of all liquids coating that floor. Cheese of 50 way. How big was that freaking room? Story 13. I skipped class to have a drink. Pocket flasks were in as a joke, and the legal drinking age was 16 here. I then had to make our sessions, my girlfriend at the time, everybody in class. So, empty halls, right? A teacher came out to grab something in the office and saw me with my hands under my girlfriend's clothes in that stupid silver flask. The teacher only rolled their eyes and said, "Living the good life, huh?" Story 14. My best friend was a peeping Tom. He told me about a very hot girl neighbor who was a high school cheerleader and that she undresses without pulling her shades and believe him. So he challenged me to come with him one day. We climbed about 3/4 up a 50-foot tree in the back of her house and waited. Sure enough, the lights come on and there she is, and a magnificent baroness. I checked the chicken 4 months after that day. I still feel guilty about it decades later. Story 15. I was 17 at the time and I was working at a store in the mall. A friend of mine asked me for a ride to the mall and I jokingly said sure, but only if I can get some head, or something along those lines. To my surprise, she said yes. I picked her up and we arrived at the mall, and I'm still expecting her to back out at this point. She then tells me to get in the back seat and she goes to work. This is mid-afternoon in a busy parking lot. By the way, the act itself wasn't amazing, but I still managed to finish. The thing is, she pulled off right away and exploded all over my work clothes. Bear in mind that my work uniform is all black. Not a fun day of work after that. This one is not safe for work on 2 levels. I hope you didn't work in the food court or something. I hope you enjoy the video. Story 3 was crazy. See you on that video.